Okay, here's something a little different. This is my cousin, Marc. He's the one that does all the filming for my cooking videos, and he's a big shore fisherman. And this year, he's been killing it from shore, various locations in the tri-state area. He went to the single jig this season, and he's had multiple limits. And a few pretty nice fish, 4 or 5 pounders. And this is the tail end of the Jersey season. So he is popping a half-ounce spro, 5-inch mullet, pretty much what I do on the kayak. His technique is a little bit different, but it's very effective. He does more of a pendulum swing, letting the jig fall towards him instead of on completely slack line, but it definitely works. So yeah, this Fluke featured in the Catch and Cook is his keeper, and yeah, I'm not much of a shore guy. I went a couple of times. In fact, my largest fluke from the past couple of seasons came from a surf trip. That was, no pun intended, a complete fluke. I mean, I've gone surf fishing maybe twice in my life. Um, but in any case, here he hooked up, and it's pretty tricky to land. He's on like a bulkhead type thing, so they do have the net, but a very nice gentleman fishing next to him is going to help him net this fish. Unfortunately, there's a little bit of a belt mishap, so I couldn't show the whole netting process. But in any case, they got it up, and yeah, turns out to be a keeper, which from this location is pretty rare. And we both agree that the single jig really calls out the larger fish. In any case, very briefly show you the filleting process. I'm cutting the scales off. I showed this in a previous video. This works better than scaling Fluke. Um, Takes a little bit more work maybe, but it's definitely worth it. And here I just need one fillet, so I'm just taking off the shoulder piece on the dark side. And the mise en place for this dish, very simple. It's just parsley, shallots, capers, and lemon juice. So the shallots, you want a pretty small dice, a brunoise. And it's very important to have everything ready. That's what mise en place means. It just means everything in its place. And once you start cooking the sauce, it goes pretty quickly. Here, the lemon juice, just flick the seeds out the tip of your knife. And the lemon juice to butter ratio is about, I would say, 2 to 1 butter to lemon juice, maybe 3 to 1. But this part is optional. You can leave it out, but I like to add some diced flesh of lemon into the sauce as well, and you just have to cut out the membrane. And by the way, you don't have to retain the skin on the fluke for this dish, but I think it adds a lot to the texture. It really protects the meat too. Fluke is very, very lean. There's no fat in fluke, and very easy to overcook. Having the skin gives you just a larger window, gives you more control over the cooking time. So here's some capers. We're going to rinse them in cold water, and that goes in a little dish. And the parsley we washed, we're going to pat dry and just do like a rough chop. This is another one of these classic bistro dishes. Traditionally, it's done with skate wing, lemon caber, brown butter sauce. That's, you can use this for any kind of white flesh fish, even salmon. I've seen that done. That wouldn't be my first choice, but it does well. It's a really balanced dish. You have the richness of the butter, which goes well with Fluke because, like I mentioned, there's no fat, and the acid of the lemon, saltiness of the capers, and everything just comes together very nicely. So here is the mise en place, and I laid it out in the order that is going to go into the pan. So that's about 2 tablespoons of butter there. Okay, so the key to getting a very crisp skin on fish is to have a very hot pan, and the fish should be very dry. So this piece of fillet was wrapped in paper towels, and here we're going to season it right before it goes in. If you salt pepper too early, the salt's going to draw moisture out, and then you're not going to get that crisp skin that you need. So first we're going to test to see if the pan's hot. Okay. So once the fish goes in, because it's so fresh, it's going to curl. The skin is going to want to curl in. This fish hasn't gone through rigor mortis, and it's so you just use your fingers. I find that the easiest. Just press down firmly for about 10-15 seconds until the skin sets in the hot oil. And notice we haven't seasoned the flesh side yet. So we'll do that right before we go to flip the fish. And you want to cook your fillet about 70-80% on the skin side. Alright, so here we're going to season the flesh side. And again, if you do this too far in advance, it's going to draw water out, and then you get a wet surface and it's not going to brown. And when you go flip it, just be very mindful of the hot oil. A finger or two on the top of the fish and just a gentle flip away from you. And you can see how nice the color is. You don't need any flour, you don't need cornstarch, you just need a very hot pan, hot oil, and a dry skin. And you can achieve these results. The oil I'm using, by the way, is grapeseed. So now the fish is done, we're just going to let it rest while we pour off the excess oil, and then we're going to start the brown butter sauce. Alright, so we're going to let the pan cool off a little bit before we add the butter. Now the pan's back on the heat. We haven't washed the pan, we just poured the grapeseed oil out. Here the shallot goes in, and this is unsalted butter. The capers are very salty, so just a tiny pinch of salt, get the shallots going. Now once you start seeing the shallot take on some color, you want to watch the edge of the pan for the color of the butter. Once that starts turning a little bit, you can add your capers and just toast that through for about 10-15 seconds. I don't like taking the butter too far to the brown side. I mean, some people take it very far. It's also kind of difficult with a black color pan, so better safe than sorry. And the lemon juice is going to stop the cooking. So once the butter gets to the appropriate level of brownness, you pour your lemon juice in. The parsley goes in and then it's off the heat. That's it. Your sauce is done. Now we plate.
Beautiful. Hell yeah, son.
Yeah, this is a very
Wow.
classic French
love
bistro, quick prep, very quick cooking time, start to finish, maybe 5 minutes. Fillets take about a minute and a half on the skin side and then 20 seconds on the flesh side. That's it. A little bit more chopped parsley, some cracked black pepper around the rim, and that's the dish. The key technique here is getting good color on your fish.
Look at my screen. Like, look at how dark it is, but look at how...
If you can do that correctly, you can dress it up however you like, and it'll be a nice dish. So here is a still photo, and yeah, thanks to my cousin Marc, and if you like what you see, please subscribe.